My name is Larry Horn. We're here in beautiful Huntington Beach, and this is my old Jawa. It's a 1955. It's a model 1500, and the serial number on this bike is 39. They didn't make many of these, probably for a good reason. There's an interesting story behind this bike. I'll try to make the story brief before point out a few things on it. I had a motorcycle shop in Miami Beach in the mid to late 60s, and I had a partner, and the partner liked to rummage around other motorcycle shops. And he went to Long's Motorcycle in Miami, Florida, and Mr. John Long owned it with his wife. And he, in 1954, acquired this bike from the Jawa factory, and it was supposed to run in the 1955 Daytona. Back then, half of the race was on paved, and the other half was on the beach. He was going to run it on alcohol, so they had very high compression pistons in it, and they changed the carburetor from one carburetor to twin carburetors, and had huge main jets in the carburetor. The AMA, this is the story I got, and no reason to doubt it. AMA did not sanction the bike, so the bike did not run. He pushed the bike in the corner of his shop and just buried it with other motorcycle parts. It just languished in the shop from 1955 till about 1968. And my buddy that I was in business with found the bike and made a deal with Mr. Long for the bike for $200. It did not have any sheet metal on it. It was just a bare bones motorcycle with an engine and wheels. It was a rolling chassis, but it had no sheet metal, rear fenders, toolbox. It had the oil tank, engine. Now, so he brought it to the shop and we acquired it. It sat in our shop for quite a while. My buddy got transferred. We were both in the service. He got transferred, so I acquired the bike. It was my bike. And a lot of bikes have come and gone and since then in my life, but for some reason I always held on to this bike. And I finally got to the point where it was a challenge to me to make this bike run. So about 10 years ago, I pulled the engine down and we found pistons that were of lower compression, rings, and also I found the original manifold and carburetor, so it converted it back to a single carburetor. And started finding, there was a guy that really helped me out a lot, a local guy that used to go to Holland to all the auto jumbles, and he also went to Czechoslovakia quite a lot. So he helped me out with gas tank, nacelle, rear fenders, toolboxes, things like that. So I started acquiring all this stuff, and I finally had enough to put a bike together. And the cam is it's an overhead cam twin 500 4-stroke Jawa. The case, all the case is all magnesium. The tappet cover is magnesium, the head is aluminum, and the barrels are aluminum with liners, but the case and everything is magnesium. So it's a very, very, very rare bike. There's not a whole lot of redeeming virtues of this bike, except it's just rare. It's a nice bike. I don't ride it too much. I started up and ride it to some of the shows and this, that, and that's just to kind of show people that Jawa did make a 4-stroke street bike back in this day. The ignition system was a point coil, and I converted it to electronic, and also did something to the generator to step it up to. I excited the fields more on the generator to step it up to 12 volts. So it is a 12-volt system now with an electronic ignition. I hid the electronic ignition in where the point used to be, so you really don't see it. So, and the seat is kind of different. The springs, when you push on the seat, the springs compress underneath the tank, whereas not under the seat. So it's kind of a cantilever type seat with the springs here. It's a plunger. It's called a plunger frame. The rear shocks are here. You can't adjust them. It's just here. And the front shocks are what they call grease shocks. There's a grease fitting here, and you pump grease into this to lubricate the front sliders. I was able to get an original speedometer and headlight assembly. There's a neat setup here on the headlight. You can adjust the beam with this knob here. You can raise the beam up and down with the knob. I'm not sure what else I can tell you about the bike. All the parts were extremely hard to find, and they were a little pricey, but I just kind of I got bullheaded about this thing, and I wanted to make this bike run. I had to take the gas tank totally apart to have it chromed and then put it back together, and then had it powder coated with the chrome not there. And this the ignition console here was a very hard one to find. Even the rubber that goes around it was hard to find. The switch has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different settings, and in Europe you can set this bike to just have the little bit of a parking light on when you park the bike at night close to a curb where people can see it. It also has an ignition, one of it is ignition, others is ignition with lights. And there's one setting here that's not connected, that when you put it on that setting, all the power in the generator goes to the ignition system. So if you have a dead battery, it supposedly will start with a dead battery and get you home. You know, obviously I don't have that circuit connected because I'm running an electronic ignition, and also I have stepped up the generator. But that originally was the way it was set. This bike is not 100% original. I've had to heavily modify some things to make it work, but there's just not a whole lot of information out there on this bike, so there's not a lot of people that can come up and point to something and say, well, that's not original. And if they do, I'd love to talk to them, because they know probably more about it than I do. So this was a project, one of the projects that I just wanted to do and see if I could do it, and here it is. And it's not a show winner or anything like that, but it's just a lot of fun, and it runs pretty darn good. I think I've got some loose tappets a little bit now, but I'd rather hear them than smell them. So it starts up and runs, and I've done a rally about 5 or 6 years ago. Cycle World put on a rally up at Sears Point, and I completed that rally and actually won an award with this bike at that rally. So I think it was an endurance award for the builder rather than for the bike. But anyway, that's my story on this bike. I like the bike. It's not my favorite rider, but it does start and run, and it puts around pretty good. I've never had it up over about 50 miles an hour, and I will never ever have it up over 50 miles an hour. But it does real good around town, and I take it to some of the local shows and things like that. So it's just more of a conversation piece. I'll never sell it. Probably throw this in with my ashes one of these days. Who knows? I've got many hours on this bike, and it's just kind of been a fun thing. It's not frustrating at all to work on this bike, because it's one of those things that the expectations are not high, and when you do complete something like that, it's just a lot of fun. So that's it.